to read have a contradiction and make sense to you. And after that, if you firmly believe that this is the word of God, then you cannot logically say it is not true, because in the Quran it's giving you like a historical information, and someone also is like another human in this lifetime is giving you a historical information. So would you believe in historical information from God or from another human?
Just think that, yeah, so what you're saying is that even if in reality the no you know something in the Quran could be shown to be inaccurate, you're going to say, well, something must be wrong with that claim or assertion because the Quran says it to be true, right? I would say that's intellectually dishonest. Respectfully, I'm not saying you're a liar. I'm just saying, like, intellectually dishonest take to have, because
No,
essentially what
no.
that
Actually,
means is unless
I
evidence
say,
is
I
presented
am
to
clear
you,
about this,
you
and
won't change your
I said,
mind.
yeah, I say actually, and I'm genuine about this. If you could find any
Sure.
contradiction in the Quran, I would refuse it to be the word of God.
Oh no, I'm saying it
Is-
doesn't. A contradiction is only one of the parameters used to determine if it's incorrect. The other thing is you can go look at the stories and determine if it's implausible. So how many animals do you guys roughly have an idea of how many animals
Contradiction
live?
even to the facts that we have in our life. For example, if you can prove to me that the ancient people, ancient civilization, they used to live um, less than us, like they have the same age or lifespan as us, then okay, then it's a contradiction.
Are we defending
Okay.
that being like 1,000 years?
Yeah, they're
Something
trying to
that
say that people used to live up to 1,000 years, and that was a common trend.
Yeah,
what
so I
what
just looked this up on Google as well, and you like all of the life expectancy at birth in years, dating back to the Neolithic and the Paleolithic times, has been the average has been between 20 to 30 years, and then it goes to like 30 to 40 in the early modern England time, 17th and the 18th century,
Yeah.
that age range according to Wikipedia, right? But there's this, it says that between 2019 and 2020, the average age is 72 to 73. Uh,
Yeah. So we're
so
living
yeah,
longer
this
on average
definitely
than
needs to
everyone
be
else.
looked into. Yeah, I'd be up for researching this. You bring up a good point, and I'll research this on my own for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would
yeah, I
just
think it's
say,
something that can well, if, living hundreds of years is not something that can be uh, proven today using today's standards, especially if we look at back then. I think I overheard you talking about like sanitation, the living conditions. They were much lower than what we have now. So the life expectancy should have been also lower.
yeah, but I would also say, like, well, and to just finish off on it, if we're talking about age in general, it's like, okay, if there were a large mass of people living for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, right? There's a lot of other things that would be happening, right? So, first, why did people just within well recorded history just start dying off a lot younger, right? Because wouldn't that be within history? Don't we just know without a doubt? Oh yeah, all right, yeah. There's oftentimes people live to 500 or 600 years old, but we don't see it written, at least in general world history, within the last 2,000 years, right? Don't you think you would see
Or
that?
during
We know it's not during
fossils
Rome.
as well.
During Rome era, there was no one living for that long. So, at least there's nothing I've seen. I'm open to being told wrong, but regardless of that fact, I mean, let's go take a look at the amount of animals on these boats, okay, for Noah's Ark. And I'm just picking Noah's Ark because I think it's low hanging fruit. I'm sure there's something more complex. But, okay, I know I've watched like a 3 hour video depicting all the parameters that would have to be in place for Noah's Ark to be accurate. So, the amount of food that we'd have to have, how often you'd have to tend to all the animals. I mean, it's just practically not even possible, you know? Um,
I've
Hello.
heard a um, I've heard different um, theories on that. I mean, of course, it some of those theories, you know, complement religion, uh, and it's a lot of it's left up to interpretation. But if we're using common sense and standards of today, uh, there's no way you could possibly put to a very animal uh, into an arc. But I think a more realistic, like one that you cannot put for interpretation is the ages uh, of some of these biblical figures.
Yeah, I mean, the point that we were all making and what I was saying was, if even one thing is wrong in the Quran, then you have to toss it all out. And so that's why I'm pointing
That's
out,
true.
okay, if even one thing's wrong, then that's why I stopped being Muslim, right? It wasn't that in particular that stopped me from being Muslim, but it certainly reinforced my belief not to be Muslim. Okay,
Hmm.
um, and I think that's the thing. I think the bottom line is it will genuinely just have to come down to nothing more than just unequivocal faith, because you can't explain some of this stuff with some of the information that we have today, and that's okay. By the way, I think some atheists are complete jerk offs. They're like, oh, it's just faith, so you shouldn't believe. You shouldn't go ahead and believe it. As long as you're not hurting anyone, who cares, right? Um, but I think for me, faith isn't an I can't use faith alone to determine the existence of the universe and how it got there, and the fact that there is an individual, if that's even what you would want to call God, judging me on criteria that I don't even believe, right? And then going out to you said, if you genuinely are looking and open to learning, you won't be judged as harshly. But I just think, yeah, I mean, that's just to give you an example. I'm sorry.
Wait, hold on.
So, anyways,
Austin, have you tried to connect with the Creator, with God? Have you tried to ask God for guidance?
um, back when I was
Sister Aisha,
Muslim, I mean, I prayed often. Maybe not 5 times a day, but I did pray often. I would fast. I mean, I would go to mosque, and
Um, I don't
yeah,
mean that. I mean right now. I mean, because you said something about God guiding you. Like, if you don't believe in God, you can say, for example, God, if you're there, show me a sign, show me something.
I have
Connect
I
with
done
God.
that? Yes,
Yeah.
I have done that. Yeah.
Prayer without faith
Sorry,
is dead.
I wanted to go back. As far as the answer to Austin's question about Noah being 1,000 years old and that not being represented in the modern world, is there a logical explanation or response to that?
What is it? Sorry.
As far as the ages of the biblical figures,
Yeah.
what's the response to that? It's not something that's represented
Well,
in modern time.
his
Yeah.
response was that the Quran says it to be true, and because he is a believer, and correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, Osama. Um, his response was because he is a believer in the Quran, takes it to be true because the Quran is a perfect holy book. Is that an accurate depiction, Osama?
That's part of the answer. Correct.
Okay.
So the answer goes like this. First, we cannot prove by any means the age of the ancient civilization. At least we don't have the technology yet to do that. We have the technology to determine their, for example, their buried bodies. We can carbon date it, and we see how old it is, how old it lived. But we don't know how until what age they used to live. We
Uh,
don't
but
have the
but
proof for that.
Abo, but
So yeah.
Abo, what would change though? What would be the conditions that would change, especially given that the lifespan, uh, logically speaking, would be short. As time goes on, our lifespan extends. So if we're gonna use logic, um, it needs to make sense as well.
Many
What
things
he's saying
changed.
is
I
that
mean,
you
if
can't
you look
actually
at
prove
this
it.
civilization today, the people, the older people, they used to live longer because now we have fast food. Now we have, for example, cigarettes. We smoke cigarettes. Now we, for example, have a lot of bad habits where we're not active, physically active
How
as we
about
used to in the past. Where, for example, you
actually?
have to go hunt for your food and so on.
Actually, life
So it's
expectancy is
many things changed.
it continues to extend. I don't know where you got that from. Um,
I don't think that's a
but it,
fact. I don't think we're living longer than the people, for example, in the 1800s.
no, that's definitely
Yeah,
that's
that's an
yeah. I don't know.
unequivocal fact.
Yeah, we
But you
absolutely
know,
are.
here's the deal
And
with
if
these
you
conversations. I would point
Maybe in
out
certain areas
that
that's true. In all areas, I don't think that could be true. Certain areas, people died faster. In some areas, people lived longer.
we're
sure,
not
That's
talking
right.
about
let's even
20 year, we're not
suppose.
talking about a 20-year difference. We're talking about hundreds of
Thousand,
years.
100
That's
years, even more. Like Rome, people live shorter because of the density and pollution. But if you go somewhere where it's more natural, people live longer.
I mean,
hundreds
That's
you
of
right.
know
years. I don't
why,
care
but
how natural you. That doesn't make sense. It's not logic. It's our body is not made
look,
to
I
live
mean,
that long.
go take a look at. I mean, you can go look at tribes in the Amazon. Right? I think they're the perfect. They would be the perfect example, right? Uncontacted tribes that just recently came into contact with individuals within the modern world, right? They're not experienced. They're living in nature. They're not tarnished by any of the modern day technologies, foods, any of that crap. Or at least if they are, I mean, to such a minimal extent that it would. I'm assuming it would not hold much value to them, right? None of them are living for 800 years. Just not happening.
Okay,
They're
I
living
can't say
for
800,
roughly
but
the
I could
same that it was
give an
before for
example.
people.
He gave
Sure.
an example of over 60, maybe 80, 90. It's people in Africa that live not to our standards, but still living long ages. They're not, um, they don't have the same resources as us in the modern society.
Sure. I mean, like I'm
And we're
sure you
looking.
could probably find people, but you're talking like, all right, 450 years. I mean, that's we're not
Yeah,
looking at like 10,
That's
20,
pushing it. I can't.
30% more. We're
yeah.
talking 300 to 500% longer, right? I mean, it's a statistical. That's what we're getting at, right? So even if you could say in aggregate that people were living just as long as we are today, or even a little bit long, that's one thing. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, maybe, but to say
I would
300 to 500 or 800 years, that would be in an
I would
But you
say
that
it
know,
would be a
stuff
you're
is
whole
thinking
another
nother.
about it.
thing.
You're
So
thinking
much
about it
different.
like, despite the fact that we don't have any proof for the lifespan
Well,
of the ancient
that's the thing, though. You
civilizations.
should be able to question it.
You
You
still,
should be able to question it, though, Abo.
yeah, right.
Like
But I just
logically
want to say
question
something.
it.
Like right now, for example, when we think about the history, maybe you're thinking about it as we used to be, not as smart as today. And the flow chart would be going from down to up regarding knowledge. But that's not necessarily true because if you look at the pyramids, for example, we still don't know how
Sure,
the pyramids were made, right?
I
And we
can give
believe
one
that
sure,
example.
the ancient civilization, they had knowledge, they had a lot of knowledge. So it's not necessarily that
that's
we are
true.
developing
Abo,
in
but
regarding
there's been
knowledge
theories
in
on how
medicine.
they've
So
been
maybe
made.
they had
Like there's actually
higher
been
knowledge in medicine.
Yeah, but I mean, we can
Abo.
go so far and look at how the. I mean, we have the Rosetta Stone, right? So we can read the hieroglyphics, right? So we can read a lot of the stuff that they depicted in Egypt, which were before the Abrahamic religions. From my knowledge, and I'm open to being wrong, there's no one being depicted living for hundreds of years, right? It's
There's
just not
actually
something,
many
right?
there's many pharaohs that are depicted living for thousands of years in Egyptian culture.
Really.
Yeah, like reigns of like 8,000 years.
Not realistic though. Like logically speaking, let's be logical here. Let's because if
I'm
anything's
not
gonna
saying it's
be
literal or not. I'm just saying that's how they depicted it.
I
Sure.
want to ask
yeah.
something. Have you guys heard of this mechanism? I can't recall. It's some mechanism that was found in the ocean and it's stated to be like 3,000 years old. and it's got gears and stuff. Um,
I've seen a picture of it. I don't know the validity of it. That wouldn't be. Look, I wouldn't be surprised if like perhaps that older societies were more advanced than we gave them credit for. I mean, I
yeah, that's
wouldn't be
exactly.
totally surprised, but I'm just saying it's like, don't you think it just again if you're saying like 800, 800 years, and then let's also be clear, didn't Noah start building the ark at 600 years old? It's like okay, even if they had technology which allowed them to live better, first of all, why if their technology was so powerful that it allowed them to live for 600 to 800 years, don't you think they would have more than a wooden boat? They would have extracted metals.
Like,
Like
for
there's just little things like that where a
It's
lot of these
made to
things are all
fit.
connected.
Who told you that the age of Noah was 600 when he started building the ark?
It was one of the stories I hold within. I can't remember who, to be honest, but that was my takeaways. He was around 600 years old.
Yeah, because it's the first time for me to hear this age. In Islam, we don't have that age, when he started and when he finished.
Regardless of when he
Sure.
started, he was still close to 1,000 years uh, uh, when his death occurred. And if here's the thing, if you cannot, you can, we can, if you don't have a logical theory, like you brought up the pyramids, there have been theories on how the pyramids were created. There have been diagrams created, but I don't think you can logically theorize why a human so long ago will live up to 1,000 years and why that was the standard for humans to live hundreds of years.
Yeah, and I would actually say scientifically, I mean, we can go look into the cells, and based on the cell alone, have a pretty accurate prediction as to when somebody's going to die, right? You can look at these things called telomeres that are the caps of your DNA, and based off the lengths of those caps, you can determine how long someone will roughly live for. Now, you can do external things to slow that down, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
super big into that. But right, there's no one's having a telomere. Oh yeah, at the rate at which it's going, which is standard, you would live 1,000 years.
you think one day
Because
we could get to a technology where we could reverse the aging or
There's a
live
couple
to
good
that?
books on that. There's a couple good books. There's this guy named Dave Sinclair that talks about slowing it down dramatically.
So maybe
And then
that
I'm reading this book.
technology was around in that era. You don't
Sure,
technology,
but
let's be logical though. Let's be logical.
say
They didn't
that's
That
even know
very
about
technology
the
would,
cells.
that
transhumanism.
technology would have been passed if it existed. It would have been passed
Mm,
on.
Not necessarily. If we have like if any
Alexandria, for
nuclear
example,
war
a lot of
happened today,
technology was lost then.
Okay, give me an example of that technology then that would have you live for hundreds of years.
We
What
could
is
say
an
that's
example of that
lost
technology?
over the years. Like,
Yeah, if there's a large catastrophic event,
Are we,
sure, but now,
are we
like
giving an
now, what
example
we're
of
doing
nuclear
is we're
war
making.
happening during the time of Noah? Is that really what we're saying?
it could have, I mean, they say asteroid, it could have been a nuclear bomb.
I, but no, I guess the
We know
point
about
is,
humans lasting over ice age
not
events.
necessarily a nuclear war.
That could have
yeah,
deteriorated.
some catastrophic event.
Nuclear war, really though? Let's be logical, y'all.
No,
Let's be
they're
I
just
mean,
saying
logical.
it's
say
some
it was a
catastrophic
comet.
event.
Maybe it wasn't a comet.
By the way,
Just
I want you
big
to
ass
do this.
bomb.
Look up something called Li Ching. Okay, one of my brothers told
Bleaching?
me about him. Li Ching Wen. He lived for
Leching.
possibly 250 years. He's
What
in
was this?
China.
Because I is this actually logically is this like accurately documented? Because
Guess
A
it would
lot
be
of
upon us to determine if it was or
history is written
wasn't,
by the
right?
victors.
Yeah, so
So
he's saying that there are documents congratulating him for his 100th birthday and 200th birthday.
has that been scientific? I don't believe that is
Okay,
the.
look him up and see it.
But let's
Let me
go and
look up
talk about like all right,
oldest
let's
person.
suppose there was a technology that was present back in the day that allowed that.
his Wikipedia page says, and I quote, 1677 born,
It's
1677
disputed.
died. It says disputed, yes, and the difference is 5 to 3 years old. I believe that's
Yeah.
the
So,
dispute
here we go. I'm
claim,
looking at the
and he
Wikipedia
died
of the longest living
6
person.
May 1933,
It
which is
was
250
Jean
years.
Jean Jean Jean
Jawan.
Louis Calment was a French centenarian and the oldest human whose age is well documented, with a lifespan of 122 years and 164 days.
When was he born
So, okay,
and
he
died?
was born in one second, February
Wait, are
21st,
you are we
1875.
are we looking at the same person? I don't know what
No, he's
person
he
are you
No,
Googled
what
the
I
oldest living
all I had to
person.
do, yeah, that's all I had to do was use actual facts. Just I don't have to look at things
I
that.
can't say Google's actual facts either. I don't.
No, but the question I feel, in all honesty, was a genuine one that Austin brought up. Like when we say that the Quran uh, has no contradictions and there are no falsehoods within the Quran, and then it makes a statement like somebody living for 1,000 years minus 50 years, and it's talking about uh, the Holy Prophet Noah, then somebody could see that as a contradiction because going by the average age lifespans of human beings, and then say that no, because this goes against the principle that the Quran has no contradictions and there are no falsehood, and then they would be in the right to leave or disregard the message.
The,
So
the
I
message needs to
genuinely
be
want to
clear.
know, like, what's the answer
Yeah.
for this?
I mean, let's
The message
suppose,
needs to be
okay, this
clear.
person that lived for 250 years was just a single edge case, right? Let's just suppose it's accurate, right? I have a gut feeling it's not, but I can't say intellectually. I'm being honest if I didn't look at all the information pertaining to it. Like, okay, one person living for 250 years. Let's put it like this: when was Noah alive? Like roughly the years,
Exactly, this is
what
what I was
era?
thinking as well. What was his timeline? And I don't think we have a deterministic date of the time that
So
when
I can
he
say
was alive.
It's around
Christians say like
Gilgamesh's time.
4000 BC. That's what I heard from Christians, right?
Okay.
4000 BC.
Maybe before Gilgamesh.
Yeah, so 4000 BC, right? We can go look at what
4
civilizations were
millennia.
around that
Yeah.
time period,
Before.
and you can go look at their history. And we're going to find during that time period of 4000. Jared, you mind looking up what civilizations were around in 4000 BC?
Hold on.
I know China was
Sorry.
a thing. I believe Egypt was a thing.
Going back, it states in the Quran how Noah remained in his nation for 950 years.
Okay, so another page on Google says that Noah lived around between 2000 to 1500 BC.
Oh, you know what though? You just
But
like
this is
all the
this is
religious
on
texts, you can
Wikipedia
take
though.
you can take
So
things up for interpretation. And so apparently one of the Islamic interpretations is that he lived in his nation for 950 years with his material body. Or he lived in the world for 950 years, so he spiritually lived in his nation for 950 years. You know,
no, that's
it's
not
very
that's
convenient.
not. I don't think there's a consensus about that. But now the age has been mentioned. The timeline for Noah's age was mentioned.
So
This is on
2000,
Wikipedia as well, like between
1500
2000
BC, around there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Gilgamesh historical reign is believed to have been possible. Yeah,
so I know what
around that time.
The Greek Empire was a thing, right? China was absolutely a thing. Egypt was absolutely a thing, right? This is
Yeah.
well documented history.
And
Well
Peruvian,
documented.
there were Peruvian tribes too.
Yeah, all of this stuff is super duper well documented, and as far as I'm aware, nobody was living even as close as that. Not even close to 1,000 years. It just means there's one or two things, right?
You're taking a fact from the Bible, assuming that it's 100% true. But again,
Oh,
in
well, I was
Islam,
saying
we
donuts
don't know the
then.
exact era that Noah lived in.
But I thought Donut said like 2,000 years, but okay.
Yeah, and
I mean,
my source was
But that's a
Wikipedia,
range
so
of
you can
there was a
take it
range
with
of
a pinch of
500
salt,
years for the
really.
information. It was
Pardon me?
2500 to 2000 BC, somewhere in that
Yeah,
area, I think is what it
on
said, right?
Isn't
Wikipedia
isn't that
it says that, but the Bible says it was 4,000. I'm trying to look up where it says exactly that on the page and just
sure,
bear with
okay.
me.
I mean, we
doesn't
can
that
go
just
back.
show
We have
the
A huge
recorded history up
range.
to Mesopotamia, which was what 12,000 years ago. Okay, so somewhere between 12,000 years ago and today, Noah existed, and in none of the civilizations, we don't have record of people routinely living for that long, right? It just wasn't. It wasn't historical fact. And so that's why I feel like I can comfortably say, okay, you either have to one say it's wrong because if this one thing is wrong, the whole Quran's wrong, or two, you have to then make an assertion. Okay, well it was a one-off. It was a one-off gift that God gave Noah. Those are
Or
really your two
three, you
options.
don't have all the information. Like you only know what you know.
Sure.
Uh,
Three. My
Okay,
third is
let's look at
I
something that's a
don't
little
have all
bit
the
provable
information.
then. Let's
Okay,
look at
so here's an
Abdul
interesting.
Aziz Al Hafid Al Habashi. You know who he is?
No.
Okay, so
I wanted to speak about something else, like how people were told. So from Hadith, Adam was 60 cubic tall, which is around 3,000 centimeters, like 30 meters long.
All right, so
And
you're
it's
talking like
same
90 to 100 feet tall.
same ratio. If you divide 3,000 over, let's say, 200 centimeters, it's 15. And if you divide 1,000 years over, let's say, 100 years, it's also 15. You can say that it's impossible for a human being to be this tall. And if you search on Google the tallest man in humanity, you will find his name is Robert Wadlow, who is nearly 3 meters long, which is like twice how we are long right now. And he lived 100 years ago. So 100 years ago, there was a man that is certified by. It's known that he was 3 meters tall, which is twice our tall. So you can say that it's impossible, but maybe before people used to be tall in times in ancient times, and they used to live longer than us. Because if we
Well,
look at the curve of how people used to live right now and how people used to live back then, it could be similar. Like
I would
Mustafa,
say
you're
in
looking
general,
at
just
people
because
were
of lack of
absolutely
data
shorter.
does not mean that it didn't exist.
that
Sure,
kind
I
of
mean, I would
evolution
just,
though takes a lot of time and stuff. It's not something that just happens over, you know, a few like
uh,
centuries. It's
yeah, I
that
would
kind of
also
evolution.
say in general, people have been getting taller as centuries gone on because we have more access to calories and don't have to expend as much food or calories to gather food, right? I mean, it's all this is the way we live now. Our height, age, everything like that, how long we live is all strictly due to the fact that we've been living in a world of agriculture and industrialization, right? So I'd
Did you
say in
guys see?
aggregate,
Sorry, did you guys see in
so
the news about the archaeologist group in China that found a body from around 4000 BC? I believe
no,
it was a
what was that?
giant skeleton. It was a giant skeleton. That's much larger than what we know of like human bodies today. It's around a height. Let's see.
So is that like
When
the
did they
Homo
find it?
sapien skull
Oh
or
no,
something
it's not
else?
that long. I think that might have just been a headline. Yeah, only 193 centimeters. Like that would indicate like 193 is only like 6'5", right? We still had tall people back then.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry, I
6'5"
just want
isn't
to
even
verify.
that.
I just want to verify this. It was in China.
I mean, I think you probably have
the
outliers, but I'm just
It's
the
published
height
by Cambridge
is a
University
true point.
Press. Discovered in Shanxi province, China.
we're
Angshan.
Yeah,
going
it
from
says
4,000 years ago
it
that was
was
6'5".
6'2". It was a person was 6'2".
Okay,
That's not a
193
so
giant.
is
Yeah,
No,
someone said
I literally just said the headline was a bit misleading, but we still had people over 6 feet. That's what I said.
Okay.
The height is made up by two components. So one component is exactly what you said. So the agriculture, we have much better access, and protein has actually enabled us to grow a lot taller. And then the other side of it is the fact that people, when they were choosing mates, they would often choose the stronger, the taller, etc., etc., etc. That used to be
Mm-hmm.
by instinct what people look, which would mean that taller people would be born more often.
Or so in
And why
aggregate,
don't we
it's
connect
just
the people tall, like being tall, with also being tall in age, like living longer and stuff like that? Why it's not possible? Because if you think about
Because
it,
that's
the
grown the
nutrition.
opposite way. We live longer now than we did back then because we have better access to technology and medicine. People back in the day used to live until their 30s because that's all that technology allowed for.
But
Didn't have clean water.
if nutrition was good back in the ancient times, how can people grow that tall very fast? Like teenage
Wait,
age is like 15
6'2",
years,
like
right?
as Austin said, there's like it could be an outlier. Like you're gonna have your outliers, but 6'2" wasn't the common. It clearly wasn't the common like height during those times.
So for us right now, to reach limit of being like growing taller is like 18 years old. But these human beings that lived that had better nutrition, they cannot grow that fast and reach that high high meters. Like if you see the examples of the tall man in Turkey and the tall man in China, if you look the science behind it, you will see that his hormones didn't stop after 18 years. They keep growing and growing and
yeah, he
growing.
had a
Yeah,
genetic
but that's a
disorder.
gene. That's a gene defect.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
not
he had a
so
a.
genetic
That's not
disorder
a.
and he died at 26.
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
if Noah was 900 years and if Adam was very tall, this can means that these people used to live very long. That's why they get very tall. There's
Well, but
no
we don't have loads of 3 meter
Wait,
tall
what?
people now. That's because it's a genetic disorder that is extremely rare. So that would have been the case. Even if it was the case, if Noah did live 1,000 years and he was however tall, that could have been that he had a predisposition, a genetic condition, which made it that was the case. But clearly, no one else has because it's not documented in any of our history.
Scientifically, our bodies could not go beyond 150 years. Like that is our limit, scientifically speaking.
scientifically we
No, but
cannot
like
get
we
that
just
tall, but
Our current,
if the
our current,
nutrition.
our current bodies
no, but like the
cannot
guy,
go.
the Chinese guy who lived for, supposedly 225 years. That's
What
like a real
that
example. I know, a
donuts?
rare
That is not
example.
widely documented. If you go and you Google who's
No,
the
no, it goes against no, it goes against what you said though about
no, it
the
doesn't
bodies
because
not
it's not
living
well
scientifically
documented.
for
It's
more
not
than 150
validated.
years.
It's not validated, donuts. I'm not going to take information that's not validated.
But if you see the smallest
It's widely known.
man
It's widely
alive,
known that that person is
it's
not
a
the
girl
oldest.
from India that she's very small in her tallness. Like she's literally
Yes.
like 100 centimeters, and
Yeah,
she
she's an
does not live.
actress.
Yeah, she does not live very long. So the age can be connected to the how the people can get tall. And back then, if you think about it, if people were very tall, like it needs time to reach that meters. It needs time to consume nutrition and stuff like that. So it's
Well, you know
possible if
why
you see
we
it from
stopped
this
Do you
we
think?
perspective.
stopped growing at like 18ish, right? Because our I'll try to dumb it down to the best of my ability because I don't understand it. Basically, for the same reason why like teenagers and children always break their bones because they don't harden, right? And the reason why they don't harden until you are done with puberty is so it will allow for growth, right? But as you get older, your bones get hardened or they become hardened. They don't grow anymore, so you stop, right? So, it's not just this isn't even something that is just related to humans. You can go back to very old, prehistoric animals. They have the exact same processes for how they grow, right? So we're not talking about, oh, you know, maybe humans were different from 1,000 to 5,000 years ago than today, which we can show that's not true scientifically. This isn't even something. This isn't even a difference between humans. This is a difference between species from today versus millions of years ago. Mammals from a long time ago, grow the same way as humans do, right? And I would just say, in general, it's just like there's no facts to support it. So even right now, what we're having to do is to go and say, well, maybe it was okay, but there's no evidence to support that it was. So we're having to come up with these outliers to support our assertions. Just means the assertions are faith-based, which is okay. That's why
I
I
call it
think
like
it's
it
fully
is.
valid not to believe it.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense to anyone?
Do we
Yeah,
have a full?
absolutely.
I think the other thing though too is to keep a little bit of an open mind. No, I mean like we haven't discovered everything yet there is to discover about our history. So
Sure.
I don't mean to say that means we need to like pay attention to every outlandish theory out there, but you know sometimes new discoveries are made and it changes our understanding.
Sure.
I think
And
there's
some
a
things about
couple of
modern
things.
society can be a bit weird too, right? Like there's other studies that show that we're getting shorter over time, despite the fact that we have more nutrition.
But I think there's different things here that we can discuss around the facts that have been stated. So, for instance, you're saying that he was 1,000 years and that he grew to be extremely tall. Well,
Okay, so
one of the questions I would have would be, how was he being fed? So all of that good nutrition you're talking about, in a day where agriculture didn't exist in the way that we have it, protein didn't exist the way we have it, there weren't, no one's going to make him 1,000 chickens a night to keep him fed, because someone that big would require a lot of food. How would that even be possible?
okay, so I may have come across something which is interesting, and I want you guys to bear with me, right? So how many years is 950 months? Does anybody know?
915 months. I don't know. Let's divide that by
It will be
12.
about,
950 50.
it can't be about
79.
85 of the
Yeah,
something like that, because if you
79.
divide it by 12,
Yeah, okay.
76 is what I got. There you
70,
go.
76-ish. Okay. So, uh, because years, like when we talk about a year, it is mentioned as a time space, right? A year is
Sure.
the notion of a time. Now, time in the Quran
Mm.
has been mentioned elsewhere as well, not by not by years, but by days. And in multiple different instances, we see the Quran talking about the earth being made in 6 days, and then it goes on to say that the day of judgment will last for 50,000 years, and then again it's 50,000 years, and then there are other instances where years are mentioned, and the time frame for those years are different, meaning that an exact time frame, like how we calculate a day is 24 hours and a year is 365 days, that has shifted in the Quran when the year is mentioned. Does that make sense?
Donuts. That means that the message
So,
isn't
so,
clear.
so
I'm
just
sorry.
hear me out, Jared. I'll try to explain it more clearly.
Days
In
means
some
age.
instance, during the in some instance of the Quran, a year is mentioned to last for a certain time, and in another instance, a year is mentioned to last for a different amount of time. This is categorically clear. Like you can look this up, right? Years, an year in the Quran is not a specific time exactly, not 365 days, because in one instance it says something else, like
How do you
Quran
verify?
on.
How do you verify, Donut?
I will bring up, and verify this as well after my talk. So, if that is the case, then the age of Noah, which is mentioned as 950 years, could be a different time frame, and this applies with that logic. Now, to verify this, I'm just going to pull up a page and bear with me. Just a second. Because I feel like this
I've
could be the only rational explanation. Otherwise, we can try and figure out how humans would have lived for that long, and we would never really get anywhere, because I don't think that's possible. I don't think
I
anybody
guess
could
just what
really live
goes
Does
for
through
anyone
my
know when
mind
the
is, don't you
Gregorian
think?
calendar started?
But let me pull
I
it
was
up,
just gonna
everyone.
mention
Just one
that
second.
too. Like years were something different from what we call it today. Like
I guess just what goes through my mind is
The
like, don't you
Pope,
think the
Pope
same
Donut.
being that can create the complexities of biomolecular life and black holes and physics in general is can deal with the complications of just explaining us to what years are. I mean, like, and don't you think he could understand, or she, or it could understand that this book is going to be the context for the
Mhm.
belief in him for the next period of years, and these things change over time? Because someone that's complicated, that can develop something as complex as a black hole and gravity and all the systems that work together in physics, should be able to have the ability to think a couple thousands of years in the future and understand society is going to change. You know what I mean? Like, you
I'm
guys
saying
understand
that's
what I'm
why I'm
trying to
going back
say?
to the message being clear. If your message isn't clear, if it is not clear and you're relying and you can't verify the years, like you still can't verify donuts. It's a theory, but as a
No, but
religion,
this is not just a
Do
theory
we have
though.
to
yeah.
end it there, or
Sorry,
could we
when
explore things like when was?
No,
No, I think you should
it-
absolutely explore it. I just think
so
that,
so it's in regards to days
it's not
being
the
mentioned in the Quran. A day
it's
ha- has a different time frame in one instance of the Quran, and it is using a different time frame for in another instance.
I think what
This
it needs to be
this you
said
can
though, I think
verify.
we're not
This
arguing about exploring
no
it. I
no
think it's a
no no
great thing to
no no
explore,
no.
but one thing you have to understand coming from our viewpoint is that if you have to hypothesize over, which calendar are we using or which year are we using, the message is not clear, and that is facts.
No, no, no. It's not, it's
The message
absolutely
needs
No,
to
the
be
clear.
clear,
message
and
is
there
clear.
should not be
No,
any
no,
there should
it is
Clear, and
clear.
let me tell you
Uh,
why I think it's clear. There is no ambiguity in the message.
you
Let
just
me tell
gave
you why.
ambiguity.
So
You're just
no, no,
no,
saying,
but
hey,
he
it could be
is.
before
this or it could be
you're not
that.
letting me talk, Jared.
He would like
Respectfully,
to
you're not
explain it
letting
in a
me talk.
different way, but
So
Donat, I
here's
think
the thing.
days here means stages in the Quran. Always when the Yawm al Qiyamah is it's a stage, it's a period of time. Like if God created the earth in 2 days, oh, but this earth was this, universe in 6 days means it's a stage. It's a stage, and even though if you go to the science, you see it's by stages, right? But when God says, uh, was it now 50 سنة أو 900 years or 300 something, 308 years or something. These are years by the where the human counting at the time of the Prophet Muhammad. You could go with the Munal or this. There is a difference, just like a year or something, with this difference, because
okay,
difference
so
between the
basically,
sun and the
we
Munal calendar is just 12 days or 11 days a month. I mean a year, short. So that doesn't make that big gap. But maybe there is another theory that you would like to present about the 950 years, and that the meaning of the years is completely different. I don't think so.
Okay, so you're taking it literally, like it means
Yeah,
950
the
years.
years.
He lived for 900
The
years.
years is literally, but days is not literal, because day in Arabic language
Hmm.
it could be used
Okay,
as for the
interesting.
morning time. It could be used for
Hmm.
the 24 hours, and
Hmm.
also it could be for a stage,
Hmm. Okay,
stage or
so
a
years are
series of
specific,
stages.
and the Arabic word is years in the Quran.
Year means year. There is no
Okay,
other
okay.
meaning for
Yeah,
the year.
yeah, I stand corrected then. I stand
says
corrected.
ألف سنة إلا 50 عاما. So it's
Yeah,
it's
that
clear
means
that it's
1,000 years, except 50 means 950
Hmm.
years. It's not stage.
yeah,
So,
I
so,
mean,
so brother, say, do you see the problem here, which, in my humble and honest opinion, I feel like Austin would be in the right. If somebody sees this written in the Quran, right, that the Holy Prophet Noah lived for 1,000 minus 50 years, and by looking at history, our history, they don't see any reason for them to conclude that human beings could live that long, or they ever did live that long. And because the Muslims are making the claim that the Quran is the truth, they don't recognize that as the truth, and then they leave the Islam or whatever their form of opinion. let's not be too harsh. Everybody's open to accept Islam anytime they like.
No, you would argue. You would
So
argue.
wouldn't they be right in doing that? Is the question here now?
Donut,
No. You would argue when you read this thing like 200. Is it possible for human to live like 1,000 years? You would argue that, right? But it's mentioned in the Quran by the Creator Himself, showing you these people were living for 1,000 years, and they told, and their size is situna dira'an, means like 30 meters. Their size, not the tall, the size, the complete size, like a normal human, at 30 meters. They were like this.
Okay,
This
but
is
see, I guess
which is
that's
mentioned at
where
that time.
that
Now you would
that's
argue with something else. What about the science? It could be human grow that size. No, it cannot grow that size. It was that size at the stage. One of the stages at the human were there in the earth. At that stage, they were this size, and they were at that age. Then the would went and decreases until we reach, like as you said, 6.2 feet, something like that.
Donuts.
That
Let me clear your
argument
mind.
is a Quranic argument.
Just it can clearly go to you just like you can use the excuse that again it's his body, his material body that lasted for 950 years.
No,
There you
we're
go.
not using that excuse though. We're not using that excuse.
You can use that
Austin
as a
wanted to add something.
as a rebuttal.
No, the idea isn't to use an excuse. That's not the intent here. The intent is to get to the truth. And the truth is
yeah.
objective and true for you and for me, all of us. We're not going to hold two different truths. We don't do that. So we want to get to the objective truth.
It's like, all right, let's just even say this one is up for contention, right? I mean, you can really just take. I always just love talking about Noah's Ark because at least from the Christian perspective, which correct me if any of it's wrong in regards to the Islamic perspective, right? But they specifically say how large the boat was, right? In Christianity, I don't know if they do that within Islam, right? And so then you start thinking about, okay, how many animals would you have had to fit in the boat? Okay, well, if you have a limited size boat and it's saying it's holding X amount of animals, you can start to ascertain, like, okay, and these many animals actually fit within a boat of this size. Can you hold the amount of food necessary to feed these animals within a boat this size for a period this long? You can start asking.
From Quran perspective, it's not all animals. It's just a pair of animals, like male and female.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, but that's what I mean. Like a lot of animals, right? So how many animals can fit within that period? So I know Christians, they say it's every male and female animal in the world. Okay. Well, Islam seems to disagree with that because the whole world didn't flood. So how many animals did they have in the boat? How much food would you need to feed these animals? How often would you have to tend to these animals? Right? And you start seeing the number is ridiculous.
No, but it's known that Noah, peace be upon him, was building the boat for a very long time before the flood came. Like, he used to remind people to come back to God long before the flood, but he started working on the boat long before that.
He was 600 years. He was 600 years when he received the revelation from God to build the ark.
So 300 years he more or less worked on the boat.
After the flood, he lived for extra 350 years.
Okay, so he
you would argue now what is the size. If he is building an ark within a month, it could be a boat. Within a year.
Well, in Christianity, they specifically line out the size of the boat. They give you the dimensions of the boat.
We're not talking about the size of the boat even now. We're talking about how long he had to work on the boat. Now, 300 years, you start building something for 300 years, and you can only conclude what that thing would turn out. Like, we don't have anything to go by. Maybe
well, I know. That's why I say in the Bible, they give you the specific dimensions of the boat, right? They give you the specific length, size, width, whole 9 yards as to how large the boat was, right?
It's not said that it was a pair of every animal, Donut.
Pardon?
That it does not state every animal in the Quran.
The flood came to the region, to a region. It's not all the earth.
So
No, I'm
I'm
talking
glad,
about
like
I'm talking about the animals
Austin.
loaded onto Noah's Ark. You said that it
We
wasn't
know
stated that it was every.
it's not all the
It does not
species.
say every single animal that God ever created.
Okay, so Austin,
It's
I'm kind of
probably
glad
all the
that.
animals that they had. It's probably all of their cattle. It's probably all of their cows and their goats, their sheep. It's probably all of those animals that they needed in order to survive. You know,
Yeah.
these concepts, when you look at these things, they may be unprecedented when they're talked about in scripture, but they're also prophecy for the future, right? These are logical things. For example, if we knew that the ocean was going to swell or a comet or something was going to hit the earth and it was going to boil over, it would be wise to build something that could, that could survive that, whether it's a boat that floats, whether it's a submarine, whatever it is. It's wise to build things that help you to survive acts of nature that threaten to destroy you. So you would try to take as much as you can. I mean, if you have more technology or you're more advanced, maybe you can take more things, more species. The
I'm
bottom
sorry.
line is
The
trying to
Quran. I'm
survive.
sorry. You said that it wasn't every animal, but if you look at the Quran,
No.
chapter 11:40, it says,
Hmm.
"Until when our command came and the lowlands gushed forth, overflowing, we said, load it with two of each kind of animal, male and female, and embark your
Right.
family, except against whom the word has already gone forth, and those who
Right.
believe."
Right.
No,
But
but
that's
these
not all the
translations are
animals in
So
the
different.
that
again.
that
In
contradicts.
one
It says
translation, it
every.
says
No, it
take
doesn't.
from every animal, take from every species. It says in one translation. In another, it says take from every animal. If you go by the one which says every animal, it could mean every animal of your specific region, because we know the
What? No,
flood
it doesn't
Yeah.
didn't
say
come
that.
again from the
It,
Quran.
It doesn't say what you're
No,
saying
you,
either.
it's
You're saying
the
all this. You're
specific
saying all the
translation
animals
you're
in the
reading.
world.
Yeah.
You're saying all the
it's
animals in the
look.
world.
Actually,
I'm reading.
in
Exactly.
Arabic,
Look.
the
I'm
the word
reading
in
what it
Arabic
says. It
exactly
says
it's
Yeah.
من
What
loaded
كل
what
with
does
two
the
of
زوجين
each
Arabic?
اثنين.
kind of animal. What? Wait. I don't
No,
know
it's
how
not.
else
No,
you
wait,
can
let's go back
interpret
to the
that.
No,
original language, Jared. Let's go back to
it
the
isn't.
original language. What does it say in
Jared,
Arabic,
Go ahead,
brother
Abdullah.
Jared,
Fadl?
the word in Arabic is من كل زوجين اثنين. من كل زوجين اثنين means from each
Each,
take
male and
couple.
female,
From each take
couple.
couple. Doesn't mean that from the entire world go get from
There
every
you go.
species two
There
couples.
you go.
No,
So I'm
it does
really
not.
glad Brother Magic Wolf and Mad Hatter are here, Austin, because I feel like they would have the knowledge to give you a better answer regarding the age of Prophet Noah, what you were addressing. To sum it up, brothers, uh, if somebody uh, goes through the Quran with the with with, with with the idea that there are no contradictions in the Quran and there are no falsehoods, and if they find something, they leave. If they find like something wrong within the Quran, they leave Islam because of that. Uh, and Austin, according to Austin, the age of Noah, peace be upon him, which is a 900, which is 50 years minus 1,000 in the Quran, which is 950 years. He, and in my humble opinion, rightfully so, thinks that when we look at our human history, we don't see anybody who lived for that long a time. So this is the one of the reasons they see, which makes them think that the Quran might not be true, and they're outside of they decide to leave Islam. How would you address this question, in your
Well,
opinion?
number one, I mean, first of all, when you approach the Quran, you have to be very careful when you're looking at figures of prophets and prophethoods. A lot of the times, people are prophets are referred to by their generations or they're referred to by their nations. And so, for example, us, we're the Ummah of Muhammad. We're the Ummah of Muhammad. So each and every person that you meet who is a Muslim, right? Every person that you meet is a Muslim. This is from the Ummah of Muhammad. Muhammad survives through his Sharia, through the laws that we follow. And so when the Quran is speaking, for example, Allah says something really quite amazing about Ibrahim. He says, Inna Ibrahima kana ummatan, right? He says, ummatan qanitan lillah. So not only is he an individual, he's also an ummah, he's also a nation. Meaning that there is not only him as this individual person who represents Ibrahim, this individual person named Ibrahim, but there's also an ummah, meaning there are also others who perhaps follow in the same order. when you read about prophets, it's more complex than that. It's not just as simple as, well, there's just this person and it's talking about the age. It's talking about the age of a people and his people and how long he preached to those people and how long he taught those people. And so we don't know, right? We don't know uh, all of the complete meanings when the Quran, for example, speaks about the years that somebody is, has been on the earth. There are many. There are many. We don't know if that means him and his teachings. We don't know if that means that he has a progeny of people who followed him, who continued to follow him, whether his ummah survived. So, for example, you might not find people called Noahites there. You might not find people who follow a law, who follow scripture that was given specifically to that prophet. But we know in Islam that those prophets were given scriptures, and we know that they had some followers.
I mean, don't you think? I always just fall back on this. Like, all right, so that means this is the perfect book, right? The book, which is the Holy Quran, which is supposed to be so perfect, no human could have ever written it. Doesn't that mean this book is very convoluted? In nature, if something's convoluted, is it not even at that point? It's not even perfect, right?
What do you mean
Because the
by
whole purpose.
convoluted?
So if you can't definitively say something as straightforward as a year or a period of time, it's convoluted. It's complicated.
Well,
It's being overly complex for something which should not be complex, like a period of time.
why are you of the opinion that it should not be that it should not have complexity?
Because if I'm talking about a period of time like January 2015 to July 2015, that is a very simple concept. I'm not saying there shouldn't be complex things within the Quran. I'm saying just as simple as measuring a period of time.
I need a break. Oh, I'm guessing you're not there. Hey, I just needed a break from all that. It's just...
You're saying that it shouldn't be complex, but it should be complex.
Oh.
But you're actually arbitrarily choosing where
Hello?
it should be complex and where it should be simple.
I need a break from that. It's just like migraine inducing.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Can you guys hear me?
Testing, 1, 2. Testing.
So the Quran says, Allah says in the Quran that there are verses in the Quran that are called the ahkam. Ahkam. Ahkam comes from the word hakamat, which means judgment, which means basically ruling, right? Law.
I'm guessing not. I might have to leave and come back. Okay, okay.
Right? Because those are the mother of the book, meaning they are the main verses of it. Right? And those are simple. Okay? Then there's the second type, which is called mutashabihat. Mutashabihat means some translators mean allegorical, metaphorical. Also,
Hey, can you hear me now?
they can be
Yeah, I can.
Alright, so...
Jared?
Yeah, I need a break from that. Oh.
You guys hear me?
Yep, all good.
Hello?
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 I can hear you just fine.
Let me re-enter.
Yeah, I can hear you.
1 second.
It says the reason why they're doing it is that they're seeking fitna, meaning they're seeking trials, they're seeking confusion, but they are also seeking in it
More internet issues. Yeah, I needed a break from that. This gets kind of annoying after a while.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
the way I
It's
see
good.
it, just like...
It's good to pop in and have a discussion.
But a lot of the time you're talking to like a brick wall and you're not getting anywhere. Like, the way I kind of big picture view that is that their Quran says this crazy stuff, and they have to do everything in their power to try and make it sound legitimate, including like word salad and like reinterpreting words and going, well, actually this word means this because of this context and blah blah blah. And it's like just the mental gymnastics to make it make sense.
I will tell you, real comes from awwal, means primary, means
And happy Pride Month.
Yeah, happy Pride Month.
Pride Month. I think that's a lifestyle that I don't partake in, but to each their own.
No, we don't. We're just not trying to push our agenda on you.
Same with the religion. I'm agnostic. I don't push religion on anybody. I think they're all good for morals and things like that, like the Michio Kaku stated.
I disagree.
But science, well, that's your opinion to disagree. You have a right to disagree. I don't.
I think religion is terrible for morals.
I have a hard time. I have a hard time just because we can't explain the universe or how we actually derived. No one's arguing that we're created. Obviously, we're here. I just have a hard time with all these books written by man. You know, I mean, it should be. If there's 7.8 billion humans that share a planet, and everybody speaks a different language, and we could walk outside and nobody has an argument over the sun or the moon, and we shouldn't have all these arguments over religion. So I would have a problem with the deity that has to be so silent. It would have to be. I can imagine a deity being so omnipotent and so powerful, being so intelligent, but it has to have his butt kissed every day because he's jealous or something. That's just not an interpretation that I can take. I can't imagine a deity that would. That's something that man would do. Think that it would have to be a slave to or something.
Yeah.
So,
God is very.
you know, that's just my. You could just tell that it's written by man, and I understand if it fills in the gaps for some people and who struggle with death and everything. I'm not saying that life can exist. You know, after death. I mean, you could be in different places at different times. I mean, there's a lot of theories out there. So I think we're in a very baby infancy of learning and discovery. But really, honestly, within the last just couple hundred years, you know, 400 or 500 years with Galileo and Newton and Einstein, if it wasn't for some of these few people that we allowed actually to excel, because they almost killed Einstein. I mean, if we would have lost Einstein to the Nazis, sent off to some gas chamber, who knows where we would be as far as technology today. You know, but I don't know. I mean, and the Germans were very close to building nuclear weapons themselves. We did, after the regime fell, take in a lot of Nazi scientists and everything to excel
The
on
Operation
splitting
Paperclip.
of the atom.
Research.
Yeah, I mean, so
Operation Paperclip. That's what it was when they brought loads of scientists
when they
from
brought loads
Germany
of scientists, yeah, I mean,
to America. Operation
you know, the
Paperclip,
regime's
that's what
over
it's called.
with. You have to take into consideration what people's mindset are after the wars too. And there's a lot of people were at war. So I mean, and the question is, would you take in a scientist from the Nazi regime? My answer would be yes. If you don't want the Japanese to get a hold of the bomb. We were still at war with the Japanese even when Germany had fell. So I'm not saying what the Nazis did were right whatsoever.
Yeah, but let's remember who dropped the bomb.
On conclusion of the war, I mean, we're talking. Some of these scientists were forced.
Let's remember who dropped the bomb.
Yeah, that's true. We did drop the bomb. I mean,
we dropped
some
the bomb.
of it.
Well,
the
the Americans
not
dropped
only that, but the USA didn't have to drop the bomb. That's the thing. We had bombed the living hell out of Japan. I mean, we were bombing them into oblivion. The bombs had caused a lot of. But you know,
the Brits did Germany. Blitz Creek. They bombed them day in, day out. Didn't just go for military targets as well. They went for anybody, everybody.
That war was over energy as well. If I could remember, I would say if I could recall, between the USA and Japan, we cut off their energy going, you know, raw energy going to Japan, oils and things like that, and stop their shipping. So we did kind of provoke, in a way, the demise of Pearl Harbor, which we used as an opening prelude.
As an excuse to come into the war.
Into the war, yeah. I mean, the United States was an isolationist nation well into World War II. she kind of joined late after the UK was basically being founded, and basically asking for her cousin across the sea, hey, you got to get involved here. So, and
It's
Hitler
always
was
happened,
crazy
hasn't it?
enough to. And Hitler also did declare war on the USA as well. He was fanatical, and so there's a lot of I don't know. There's a lot of historical data between a lot of people fought for it. Honestly, not just the USA.
When did he
The
declare
Brits,
war on
Ozzy.
America?
Hitler declared war in America. I'm gonna have to
He
Google it and tell
declared
you.
war
But
in 1933, economic war on international Zionism. Zionist.
he
That's what he did. He
literally
declared
actually declared
economic
war
war
on. No, but he
in
actually declared
1933.
war on the USA as well, though. Is what I'm saying. He actually
Well, that's
literally
where the
declared
majority
war.
of the Zionists were at that time.
Yeah, I don't know about the Zionists, because not every Jewish person's a Zionist. For instance, the Orthodox,
No,
the
they're
Orthodox
not.
aren't.
Yeah.
That's
The
good.
Orthodox
Hi.
aren't Zionists at all. They don't
All
even.
good.
They're talking about like
That's a message
Nazis and
from
Germany now. I don't know why.
Why they all fighting? Which kind of
Mm,
makes
Yeah,
sense.
got a bit off
I guess
topic.
it's the
It makes more sense than being Zionist because
yeah that's what's going on nowadays. I
Messiah
guess.
hasn't even came, and you're not recognizing Jesus, Messiah.
Can I just
Yeah,
ask you a
that's
general
all
question
nice.
about?
This is your Israel. How do you
Yeah.
know Israel isn't the
So you're Muslim, Che, right?
make an argument?
No, Christian.
Think about it because they were
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I must have assumed from the because of Noah's Ark is in the Bible. Yeah, of course.
slaves pretty much all over the Middle East.
Okay, so this I can still ask you this. Like, if you had to put a percentage on how certain you are that Christianity is true, what number would you put?
They were accused for the plagues of the rats, but it was the fleas that ended up in the rats.
I would put.
Were the corporate on the ships.
What is that?
Or on the Viking ships,
You
all these
recording?
transport ships. Everything is where they got the bubonic
Huh?
plague.
Yeah, I would say it's 100. I could say my faith in it is whole. Like whole would be 100%. Wholeheartedly
100%.
had faith with it.
Chains where
Hmm.
they want to cause blood on themselves
So there's no room for doubts or not even 99.99999. Absolute 100%.
Mhm. Based on my understanding of Christianity, I guess my understanding is the same as others, but yeah.
Just give me 1 second. Sorry, I just need to fix something.
Oh, we gotta save the church. They spent billions of dollars on this effing church. I don't want to cut
Yeah,
the church,
yeah.
but it's a building. Did Moses stop in the middle of the damn desert, build a big shrine?
I
and
went to
pray?
Vatican
You know what I
City.
mean? So I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I went
but,
to Vatican City. I went to Vatican City 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
just outside, it's not a wall; it's just a borderline, which perimeterly to Vatican City. And a lot of the beggars were Romanian Catholic.
Romanian Catholics, the beggars.
Yeah.
They have a
Yeah,
lot
and
of.
they were
Do they have a
begging.
lot of people on the streets begging
I can
for
just
money?
about hear you.
They were begging all outside Vatican City. They weren't allowed in
All
Vatican
outside.
City. But they
Yeah, I
were
could hear.
outside. But you could tell they were
Oh,
Catholic. They had
hey,
rosemary beads
surprised me.
on,
Oh,
and it was
Yeah,
like.
he was just messing
And
with
I
you.
just thought to myself,
is that better?
the Vatican is worth
Yeah, it's fine.
that much wealth.
Alright, sorry.
Yeah, even Catholic.
There's a lot of corruption in the church.
I'm not really used to talking to Christians. Sorry, I'm in like Islam mood. Okay, so let me ask you this. I'm not a Christian. Why do you think I'm not a Christian?
Because you don't believe in Jesus as your cornerstone, or yeah, you don't have this understanding of Jesus as I do.
So I grew up a Christian. I went to a Christian school, and my parents were kind of Christian. So I studied the Bible at school. Like I have a good understanding of Christianity. I think, but still I'm not a Christian. Do you find that odd, or do you think I'm in denial?
No,
Or
Don't you think the
I
fact that we're
find it
here?
that you may have
Don't you think the fact that we're here?
lost your way, or you don't.
Something.
you have some doubts, or maybe you are subconsciously.
I believe in non-duality.
that's what all religious people say. Like deep down, you know it's true. Muslims tell me that all the time.
I mean, like, would you consider Jesus? Is what I would have to ask. If you
What
don't
does
believe
what does that
it's true.
mean?
If I ask, what made
We
you
were
lose
born,
faith
we was
in
born.
Christianity?
Where did we
Of
come
course,
from?
what is Christianity to
Get
you?
me? It's like, yeah, we were born, but nothing. You can't just pull a rabbit out of an hat.
So, Yahweh,
So
the God
even though, yeah,
of the
we
Old
were
and New
born on this
Testament,
plane,
sent down a bunch
you
of
know, we
prophets
appeared here.
to preach the
You
word.
can't just appear from nowhere.
I just kind of a
You
broad
know,
question. I
you've
don't really know
got
how
to,
to quickly
I
summarize it,
honestly
but
believe me
Yeah,
personally, my personal
that's
belief, and there's a lot of reasons
it's
why I believe this.
religious talk in a way. Like
When we
it's
die, when
quite
we leave
simple.
here, we
It's
go
having
back where
Jesus
we
as your
came from.
cornerstone.
Because
That's the easiest way I can put it
But I mean, we
in
don't know
layman's
that.
terms.
No one's came back from the dead to tell us that. I mean,
so I don't
it may,
doubt
I
that
mean, I don't know.
Jesus
I
was a
mean, if we
person
have
who existed.
parallel dimensions,
I mean, I haven't
this,
actually
that,
looked
how
at
do you know
the
you can?
historical
There's
evidence
different.
for that.
There's different.
But I've heard a lot of people saying that there is some supporting evidence that Jesus was a person who existed back then.
There's people who
Yeah,
believe
I've
in
heard that
reincarnation. You
he
just get
wasn't.
born again
Like
back
it's
into
fictional.
the cycle.
To me,
It
it's like
recycles itself.
your faith is
Energy
strong
becomes
enough.
mass. Mass becomes energy. We
It
can't
brings
see
a
beyond
sense of
even the event horizon, even in science.
purpose and
Event
unity
horizons, the black hole,
to life.
we don't know what happens to space.
It gets a bit
So we can
esoteric.
trace the
I mean,
Doppler effect.
that's like
Like it.
yeah, that's very like kind of hippy dippy. Sorry to say that, but it's very like oh, it makes you feel good and it gives you purpose and but look, that people find that in Scientology, you know, Mormonism. You talk about faith quite a lot. My understanding of faith is thinking something is true despite the lack of evidence. Would you say that's how you're using it?
Everything I'm saying is a theory.
it's all fair. Yeah.
But they were all saying, you know, they were saying, well,
Yeah,
of
it's
a universe attached
yeah, belief and faith.
traveling backwards space-time.
So
You didn't
you
answer
said
my other question there, but
which one?
yes, I would say faith is.
Yes, because at the
I
speed of
asked
light,
first what was
when we go
Christianity
out
to
there,
you, and then I asked who is Jesus to you.
yeah,
Well,
we're
Jesus
seeing
is one of the
something that might
prophets,
not
but
be
he
there
also
now, in this time,
was God. God
might
sent
have already
himself down
exploded
to
and
die
gone.
for our sins,
But
just to put it quickly.
Okay. Yeah, with that said, I think some of that gets misconstrued in religion.
We're the ones saying
Um,
created it. Because if you
maybe I
get into
could
the God
try
thing, then there's always going to be the question of who
to
created God.
give you a better understanding of it if
yeah,
you
I
was
get
willing.
you. I get what you're saying. But it's like
We'll continue with your question, or if you got your,
you say it always existed.
if you want to ask me a few questions.
You've got light years.
Yeah, just going back to what you were
You've
saying
got
about
light
faith.
years. You know, it's like we
So did
measure
you?
things.
The way you look at faith is it
We
thinking
measure
something's true
things,
despite
and
the lack of
it's,
evidence.
you know, yeah, we can say that, you know,
Like trust. It's like
if it's
trust.
just happening
Having
like
trust
that,
in
just
something,
like a pulse,
despite not
you know,
being
but-
certain that it's.
Could I add on to that? Like that's,
Pardon?
yeah, it's trust, and it's trust
Yeah, are you guys here? Are you in the conversation?
out doubt. It's trust in goodness, and that cannot lead to evil.
You don't believe in hell. And it's not that they reject Jesus.
That is my faith. Like
Stuff going around sediment, anti-Semitic.
brings us back to a common understanding of how we should live.
Kill Jesus. Not one Jew stabbed him, not one Jew dragged him. Yes, yes, during the time.
Okay, so I think you're going on a slightly
Christian or Muslim?
a slightly different definition.
Yeah,
I think.
yes, I could say yes in the
Okay,
question.
I grew up Christian, but no longer Christian.
Because right at the beginning, I asked you how certain are you about Christianity, and you said 100%. But now you're saying that there's you need faith, you need trust. If something's 100% true, you don't need to have faith or trust that it's true. You know, you're 100% convinced.
Why not?
He has a father. He has
Well, you're saying it's 100%.
Why not?
You're 100% certain that it's
When
true.
you look at the old,
Mhm.
So there's no
Mhm.
room left for to have faith in anything because you know it's true.
Hmm. Mhm. It's I I feel we could have both. Like it could be put on the same
I tell you what,
pedestal because
tell you what I've
it's a
always found interesting.
subjective
You
thing
know,
that you're
like the
asking.
Torah, the
Me, I
Old
have
Testament.
faith,
We call it the Old
and
Testament. You call it
I
the Torah.
believe it's true.
Right now, God, Yahweh.
Okay, I think I'm
But
a
it
little bit
really
confused.
is
We
a
call
subjective
Yahweh.
question.
Why did the tribes
Like if
summon
it
Sure.
could be
Yahweh?
my
Why did the
truth,
tribes pray
I can't
to
say it's your
Yahweh?
truth, so I would
Summon
have to
what?
say I believe. It would be like
Isn't that-
you would call me a
You
liar
look at all the
if
tribes.
I say it's true.
I wouldn't call you a liar.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
You
good.
could just be you could be wrong, but you don't know you're wrong.
At that time, though,
You
there
think
would
you're
have
right.
been. At that time, there would have been more than.
Mhm. Well,
At that time,
I would think I'm right.
yeah.
Sure. Okay.
At that time, there would have been.
What was I going to say?
At that time, there would have been more than God.
Oh, that's my train of thought now.
That people worship.
You said, oh yeah, you said it's your
Yahweh
truth
was one
that's
God
different
of
from
many
my
gods.
truth.
You know,
Is that
it
how
was
truth works?
that-
People have their own personal
Can we come over
truths.
here a bit? Getting kind of
Yeah, it's
loud.
really noisy. It's very noisy, isn't it? That's better.
Okay.
Yeah, you were saying it's your truth that it's true, but that could be different from my truth. But is that how truth works? That people have their own
Yahweh, the God,
versions of
Yahweh,
truth?
the God in the Old Testament, in the Torah, right? He
See,
was
people
just
have their
many
own
gods.
versions of
Many
truth.
gods. There was just one
Well,
God
that's what
with
you
many
said
gods.
earlier. You
There
said
wasn't even
that
the biggest God.
Christianity is like your
Just
truth, and it might not be the same as mine.
a second, it's breaking up.
Sumerian text.
Oh, it's
You
probably
Google
me.
it, type in Yahweh, Sumerian. You'll see that
Is that better?
Try
Can you
now.
hear me?
on this
Testing 1 2.
predates.
It's
Testing.
breaking up.
Okay, I'll be right back. Wasn't really going anywhere anyway.
What was one of the miracles that happened? Do you remember?
No.
I'll give you a hint. Splitting?
Oh, the moon.
No, well, with the sea, right? It split the sea.
Oh,
right?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. So the sea was split, and Moses was able to have his people
In the Old
on this
Testament,
area that with the sea split, and his people escaped from, right? Now splitting in that sense, right? When you split something, now which do you think would be really kind of a bigger, I don't know if you would call it a bigger miracle or whatever, right? That you would sign.
I'm sure you've seen maybe even seen documentaries
So
where you see like
Moses
stories
splitting the
of
sea is associated with him splitting the people away from the previous religion, right? Those people.
Are we hiding in the corner?
Pardon? Oh,
We
he was
hiding in
saying
the
he was
corner.
leaving.
Oh,
No, he
okay.
was saying he was leaving.
Oh, cool.
So I think he couldn't. Initially, he couldn't hear me.
No, I can hear you just fine.
They initially couldn't, so I think he thought it was his VR. And
Okay.
I'm dead. How much percentage am I? I've got to put this on charge. Oh shit, like 10%.
Uh-oh.
It's really nice to meet you.
Yeah, hopefully catch
Yeah,
up again.
we'll talk again tomorrow. Take care,
Yeah,
really
I
nice
might
to
be
meet you.
around.
Take care, bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, definitely. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Burger King or halal.
Really? Okay.
Shows that there's been a development in their brains to the point where they're able to make rational decisions on their own behalf, and that there's been a lot of scientific evidence to demonstrate that once they get to that age. Right. So evidence that they are mature enough to make decisions that correlate with their own well-being and with that sense of self that they're growing into. So a child being married off to someone, especially at those young ages, to me it doesn't matter like what the culture or if they were forced into like having to develop faster because of obligations of career or jobs. Still should never be put on a child
Not
to
career
have
or
to.
choice, more survival. But it's not. It's
Right.
not that. And like I say, you're looking at it from a modernist lens. And the thing is, just to go back because you said science. You said, "Oh, science
Mm-hmm.
has shown." I'm asking, what study? Scientist. Where? I said 18 is the age that all of a sudden you're
Mm-hmm.
mature. Which study are
Yeah,
you
no, I'm not
citing?
saying I'm not going to be arbitrary with exactly the moment you turn 18, because
Right.
obviously
Okay. Fair
people
enough.
develop at different rates, right? But it's a
Exactly. Yeah.
good
There you go.
general rule of thumb. There's a big difference between 18 and 9.
Yeah. But
Wouldn't you agree?
like you say, it's a general rule of thumb. But I would say personally that in today's day and age, even like 21 is too young. In all honesty, because you have 21,
Okay,
especially in the
well,
West. You've got
maybe.
21-year-olds in the West
Yeah.
still playing games, arguing about trivial things. They don't even
Mm-hmm.
understand how to wash their own clothes. Don't know how to cook their